BMJ. It is short for the Black Justice Movement. It is a pro-black movement that was created in 2003. This movement mainly focused on getting justice for black individuals who were wronged by the so-called justice system of America. This movement was a response to the black incarceration rate in the country, that of which is 5 times higher compared to white individuals. Even though white people overall commit as much if not more crime than their black counterparts. Discounting murder, it is only right to assume that the real threat to society is white people, and yet it is blacks who are criminalized. The movement itself did its job. With the help of BMJ, a good percentage of innocent black males and females locked up behind bars were freed. Unfortunately, like every other black movement, it was targeted by both sides of the political party. The media accused the group of releasing cold-hearted criminals. As such, BMJ's founding quickly dropped, and its membership decreased. The movement soon died a year later. That is just one of the many examples of black movements being ridiculed and beaten down. People say that black people should better themselves, and yet when they try they are hit by a wall. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, the Black Panther Party. Over and over again they try to better themselves, only to be hit by a wall. When you push someone over the edge, they are likely to snap. When you push an entire group over the edge, it's the same result. However, in truth, no matter what black people do, they will be treated like the bad guys. If you always gonna be portrayed as the villain, then why be a hero? Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. You can tell a lot about people just by the way they hold themselves. Jade's grandfather used to tell her that all the time. Luckily for her, she decided to take his words to heart. Especially when dealing with her new neighbors. From inside her house, Jade watched as a box truck pulled into the house across the street. Beside the truck was a small car. Stalking the new neighbors again. Rolling her eyes, the dirty blonde glanced behind her, only to see her brother staring at her with a raised eyebrow. "I'm not stalking. A professional psychiatrist would disagree." Jade opened her mouth to respond. However, after glancing over at the kitchen where her mom was, she closed her mouth. That caused Mateo to grin. Jade wondered if it was truly possible to hate and love someone at the same time. As she was busy thinking this, Mateo looked over at the window. "Huh, looks like you in the business of making friends your age." Shaking her head, Jade looked over at the window, only to narrow her eyes upon seeing 2 figures standing in the middle of the driveway. One figure stood around 4 feet 6 inches tall. The figure was male, chocolate skin, brown eyes, with black puffy hair. If Jade had to guess, he looked somewhere between 11 and 13 years old. He wore a dark sleeveless shirt and black nylon shorts. Jade watched as he looked around his surroundings. From his body language alone, Jade could tell he was confident. Yet that didn't stop him from being wary of his surroundings. Beside him was another figure. This was a 4 feet 4 inches tall female with white skin and brown puffy hair. She had a matching set of brown eyes and looked to be around the same age range as the male. She wore a gray zipped-up hoodie and a pair of gray shorts. Unlike the male beside her, she didn't display confidence. Instead, she rocks back and forth on her knees, her eyes darting up and down the street. From this, Jade could tell that she was more nervous than anything. She watched as the boy muttered something under his breath. She had no clue what he said, but whatever it was, it caused the girl to behave much more calmly than before. Suddenly, Jade saw an elderly woman with black hair pop out from the front door. A second or two later, both kids ended up going inside the house. "It looks like we're gonna have some interesting folks living across from us." "You can say that again," Jade agreed. "Of course, at the end of the day, only time will tell." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Someone was watching us, Andre stated. "Not surprising, dear," Chantel told her grandson. They were new to the neighborhood after all. As such, prying eyes are expected. Anything else? Chantel watched as the two glanced at one another. It reminded her so much of her children back in the day. Oh, how she wished things could have been different. After a moment, Amani spoke up. Her voice was soft, hesitant, very unlike her brother who spoke with confidence and certainty. We were wondering if we could put the flag up. Chantel chuckled. Right after you helped me unpack. Both kids nodded in agreement. Amani was all smiles while Andres looked serious. The grandmother smiled. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Unpacking wasn't exactly an easy affair. Luckily Chantel had help from the movers she hired. With her grandchildren also lending a hand, it didn't take long for them to finish. That left them with one last item on their list. You do it. Amani looked at her brother in surprise. Usually, he would be the one who dealt with the flag. Andres King Jackson was many things, but a person willing to go against routine wasn't one of them. Are you sure? He looked over at her. In his eyes, Amani saw no clear doubt in his decision. As sure as our ancestors who rebelled against the evil of the white race. Something inside Amani's chest tightened at his words. It's not that she disagreed. Rather than once again reminded her of the mark upon her skin. The mark of the white man. You aren't doubting the cause, are you? Upon hearing this, Amani quickly shook her head. To doubt now would do nothing but put shame upon the ones who died before me. Andres stared at her. Amani stared back. Determination flashed in her eyes. After a moment he nodded. She saw a hint of a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Amani smiled back before turning and marching forward. Flag in hand. After a moment she stopped. Taking a deep breath, Amani raised her head high. She did not want her ancestors above to look down upon her with discontent. She hoped by doing this she'll fall within their favor. She closed her eyes before muttering the words that signify her belief in the spirit of her people. To be black is to be true is to be free is to be willing to die for freedom, so is my way and the way of my ancestors. With that, Amani planted the Pan-African flag into the ground. Behind her, Amani felt the approving gaze of her brother. At that moment she felt a sense of pride swell within her chest. Looking up at the sky, Amani briefly wondered if her ancestors were looking back down at her. If they weren't, Amani knew she could make them.